Lisa, have you caught up with Game of Thrones yet? I am like freaking out about how far behind you might be.
Might be. You want to know where I'm at?
Where?
I'm almost halfway through.
Oh my God. What's halfway, like season 3 or 4?
I'm almost at the end of 4, so we're about to watch, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the fight episode.
Who hasn't seen Game of Thrones? We don't need to do any spoiler alerts.
You're right. I'm the only loser in the room. We're about to watch the fight, Tyrion, and the prince is with the mountain. So Samir's like, we got to watch that together. Because some episodes Samir will watch with me because he's like, oh, this is like a big episode, you know? So,
yeah.
But then I always know before the episode that this is big, so I'm nervous, you know? And can I just say, I don't want to spend too much time. I know we haven't even done introductions yet. The Red Wedding, I felt so alone.
So you're watching it and like you don't have a community of fellow fans on Reddit that can like chime in and be like WTF and things like that with you.
Yes.
Work has been stressful lately and I go onto Reddit and it just makes all of my heart desires fulfilled. There was like there's a bunch of threads on there that are just hilarious. Okay, I forgot to do the intro, so let me do that.
Oh, we can do the intro now. People know, but go ahead, intro.
Okay. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of It's Your Time to Shine, a podcast about being a mom in a modern world. My name is Jaspreet Kaur, and with me is my friend Lisa Vora.
Hi.
Hey. When you're ready to watch the finale, please call me and I'll watch it with you virtually, and then we can have a discussion on Friendster or MySpace or whatever old platform you want to revive for your Game of Thrones updates.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You are my best friend.
So, has watching Game of Thrones and catching up with the rest of the world, has it given you any new insight on all of these Game of Thrones references that have been going on? Like, I asked because I went to California last weekend and one of my friends kept on calling me Tyrion. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the hell? Why are you calling me Tyrion? And she was like, you're so diplomatic and you always like see the positive in every situation. And I'm like, why is that bad? This is the problem with Game of Thrones. It's created this cutthroat, like monarchy culture, dictator culture. And like, you can't even be nice anymore.
Oh my God. If anyone said I'm like Tyrion, that's the best compliment ever. I love Tyrion. I don't know where he is now. I know you and I are both talking different timelines. I'm season 4 and you're done. So,
Right.
But I love Tyrion. So
I like Tyrion too. And you'll see a lot more in his character. And like, I do really like him.
Yeah.
But for some reason, of all the people on Game of Thrones, all the possible heroes and all the royal blood, I have to be like the dwarf and the one who's like, doesn't even fight for himself.
You know who Arya reminds me of?
Who?
You've probably heard this. Harkonnen.
Yes. People tell me that all the time.
She's got like that same look and that same spirit. From the first episode, I thought so. And she was a kid then.
Yeah. I think take that as a huge compliment, obviously. You don't even know how big of a compliment you're giving me because you're not on season 7 yet.
I'm loving her, but yeah, I hear there's more to love.
Yes, there's a lot to love with her. And she's very uncomplicated for someone who should be seemingly complicated.
Right.
And that is like Harkonnen. She's very just straight. She knows what she wants and she knows what she doesn't want. Yeah, now that Game of Thrones is over, the next great escape in this golden era of TV and movies is looking forward to Handmaid's Tale starting. Did you ever end up watching it?
So I saw the first like 7, 8 episodes, and obviously I'm very connected as a woman to the storyline, and especially in light of what's happening in this country and the world. But I at some point said to Samir, like, I'm just not looking forward to watching this. And I don't look at TV that way. I want TV to be something where I am just like sit down and I'm looking forward to the next episode, you know? So maybe it was just too much. I don't know.
Was it like too heavy?
It was so heavy.
That's what I was wondering. Like, was it too heavy for you to like even take on?
I couldn't sleep. I mean, like I would have dreams about it. I would had so many dreams. So yeah, it's just very disturbing.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. Like when I first started watching it, I was like, why are we watching this? You know, because me and Budham were watching it together. And then he was like, no, just, you know, it felt too close to the reality especially post 2016 election
Right.
and the Supreme Court becoming very conservative.
I think it was during the Kavanaugh hearings that I started watching Handmaid's Tale.
Now, after the Alabama vote and what's possibly happening with Roe v. Wade,
Yeah.
I am so shocked and appalled and scared that I feel like we have to watch it so that we become comfortable with having the conversations.
For me, I think her being separate from her daughter gets to me too much. It just hurts my heart too much. I know I'm really like emotional. So
Yeah. Well, it's such good writing and such good acting that it feels real.
yeah, definitely.
And so I think like that's their dream come true. If you're like, that's too much for me.
Yeah.
That's like the producers and the directors like dream, right?
Yeah, that's true. And while I watch it, I'm also thinking, like, I remember the beginning, I was like, oh, if Trump saw the show, he'd be like, yeah, this is what I want, Like, we have a president who would endorse this kind of lifestyle, this kind of, system of government.
That's so funny. I actually like halfway through the first season was like, why are we giving everyone ideas on what to do? This is terrible. Cut this show off.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But the truth is like, it was a book, right? And I forgot I think I even read the book like years ago and I had forgotten about it. And it's different. The show is done so well that I think like when you read a book, we imagine things in a certain way. But when it's a really well done show or movie, they're like taking some of the things to the extreme and it just feels more real.
Maybe I should read the book.
Yeah, maybe you should. And I think the other thing that's different for me is when I read the book, I believe I was in high school and I wasn't like of reproductive age, so to speak. I wasn't like a mom.
Right.
I didn't have daughters.
We didn't have Trump.
We didn't have Trump or a majority conservative Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And the lack of checks and balances, in the three branches of government. And this idea that we grew up with, like me and you especially, we grew up in the 80s. And the 80s was like we were fighting the Cold War. It was very clear who the heroes were.
Yeah.
And it was very clear who the enemies were.
Right.
And so I think for all of us Gen Xers, it's hard to accept the fact that government could become corrupt.
Yeah, we lived like kind of in good times.
The best times.
So it felt like, at least here in the United States, obviously there was stuff going on around the world, but here, So
Totally.
It just feels like, yeah. I mean, in general, your childhood always feels like it was so great and now it's like reality, responsibility. But I think it's more than that. It's also where we are. Supreme Court, what's happening all over the world, a slow-moving coup in this country.
I know. It is. And then we were talking last episode when I recorded with Dave, our sound engineer. We were talking a little bit about how things with our kids, like technology was not a distraction because it just wasn't available to be a distraction.
Right.
Like no one was addicted to TV or to Game Boys or to whatever, or, because there just wasn't that many of them. And now it's so difficult for kids. And that just seemed like such great times. You just go play outside.
Yeah. Going outside, get your dopamine hit.
Yeah, the most sophisticated device that we had was this like speak and math, which is like all the like non-Desi, non-Punjabi kids had the speak and spell. But our kids were like, no, spelling is easy. You need to do math. Like, okay. So I would take it on car rides and it would be like, let's play a game.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was it. And now I look and comparing that to life now, I don't even know if our generation is prepared for what we need to do from a critical thinking and a critical action perspective. And it really upsets me, especially when you hear about people not even getting out to vote.
Right.
I think it's two aspects. One is like, do you care enough that you want to do it, right? And then the second one is like, do you make it a priority? Because I am very active in speaking up on, the importance of voting and all of this,
Yeah.
And then I'll tell my friends and like, you've seen my social media, like I will text people and be like, hey, don't forget, it's time to vote. Vote for, I don't tell anybody who to vote for. I'm like, just exercise your right, because you and I come from, our parents came from a place where women didn't have the right to vote. Mm-hmm. And so it's like really important. And people sometimes are like, oh, I didn't get a chance. And I'm like, you didn't have a chance to vote between like 8 and 8 for the entire week of early voting and the day of the election when you couldn't fill out a mail-in ballot, like an
Right.
absentee ballot.
Yeah, it's lack of education too. I mean, just having some sort of understanding about our system of government, how it works and why it works the way it does. And
Right.
and also lack of not understanding what's happening around the world. That's what I tell Samir too, because he's always up to date with Washington Post, what's happening in American politics, which of course is important. But I say it's really important to understand world affairs. And I'm not one to be like, I know everything in depth. That's not me. I'm not going to pretend it's me, you know? But I do like to read the headlines and at least know what's happening around the world. And headlines meaning like BBC, because headlines going to CNN is completely different, right? They're completely different headlines. But
Right.
that understanding gives me the appreciation of where I am and how lucky we are to be in a country with checks and balances, at least right now. You know?
Right. Yeah, I don't think I can even agree with that statement because there's so much systematic corruption. I don't think that there is checks and balances. I think that what is happening now is a systematic deconstruction of the democracy and the checks and balances system that was created in America. It starts with the Electoral College, which, for whether it was right or wrong back in the day, I think people made like some good cases for the Electoral College in the like founding father days, right? So going back like 300 years. And it had to do with like lack of education and people being able to utilize a strategy that the labor unions used, which was just get a lot of bodies and show your votes. And people were just being paid. You would just be like, hey, I need the 10 of you to come. Here's $1 each. And they would come show up. And so that was the purpose behind the Electoral College. But today, the Electoral College, because of gerrymandering, is very skewed.
Yeah, when gerrymandering is a big, big issue. I mean, I don't know when that's going to, now with our Supreme Court, who knows when they're going to overturn all these states, you know?
The thing is that we need to have activism at the congressional level to be able to change gerrymandering and at the local level. And I agree with you, like you have to be aware of what's going on with international politics, but I think local politics like really affect your life and your taxes and your child's school, and those things are like really important to me.
Yeah, and I agree with that. They're not mutually exclusive. You know, it's just different avenues of becoming a knowledgeable voter, person, citizen. You know, but you are right. I mean, right now, one of the problems is that there is an attack on these checks and balances. And if these attacks continue, then we could end up like the countries we read about. Even more important to stay informed and more reason to go out and vote.
And speaking of voting, like in the presidential election, like 50% of the American population votes. So I think there's like 300 or so million people in America. And then if you take only the ones that are citizens and not convicted felons and over the age of 18, it takes it down to like 200 and something. Let's say 220. So we'll use round numbers. Out of that, only about 50% of them are registered to vote. And a lot of that has to do with voter registration laws and making it very difficult for certain socioeconomic statuses to be able to register.
Yeah, they need to make it easy.
Totally. And for whatever reason, only half of them are registered to vote. And the most that we see coming out to a presidential election is maybe like in the 50% of the ones who can vote coming out.
Yeah.
But when you look at local elections, like we're entering a runoff for San Antonio's a mayoral election and some city councilor positions, and only 22% of the city voted. And it's like, so 22% of the people are deciding your future.
Local elections, like I'd said in my old video, are the most important election. I like remember myself saying that. Like I did a sound effect too. The most important. You're 100% right. People don't understand that connection between their daily lives being affected at a local level, you know? And I'll just say it is hard because I just moved and it should be pretty easy for me. And I had to follow up several times to make sure that I'm registered to vote where I'm supposed to vote. And it was really like in my to-dos, I'm like, why is this so hard? Why do I have to keep following up? You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't be.
Especially when it's considered a right.
Exactly. And I have to keep doing it. And then they're like, oh, this can take up to 30 days. I'm like, why? I'm like, because I actually moved to a district that's purple. So it's even more important, you know? So, and I'm like you, we keep track, you know, of what's happening and when to go vote. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know. I'm not here to answer it with you and me, how our passion and wanting to vote and understanding the big picture. I don't know where it comes from. But for some reason, there is a disconnect, you know?
I feel like it must at some point, at some level, it must come from some teacher or someone I had that was like, you are so lucky you have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Exercise it. I don't remember anybody saying that to me,
Right.
but I feel that so strongly. I'm like, I didn't come up with that on my own. So I'm going to give credit to one of the teachers from Bodmill Elementary School in Laurel, Maryland. You guys did it.
Shout out.
Yes. And then the other part is that my mom took me to vote with her.
Oh, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I think so too. And so now, like, she used to ask my dad, like, oh, it's time to vote. My dad would be like, yeah, let's go. And we'd be standing in line and they'd have the sample ballot. And she would say, like, okay, who are we voting for? You know, she would work with my dad, like, okay, tell me who I should vote for.
Right.
And they would go through it together because information wasn't as available back then as it is now. She couldn't just like get on the internet or turn on the news or whatever, right? But I remember she used to take me in with her. And this is in the days of ballots being set up at the elementary school in the cafeteria at night. And they were the actual paper ballot. And you put the paper in, slide it into the thing, and then you close the curtain and you clip off, like, you know, you move these little tiny levers up and down to the candidates that you want. And then when you pulled the curtain, when you pulled the like lever on the voting machine, the ballot would get like punched and it would fall into a thing that was like being held, you know, like a little locker spot. And then the curtain would swing open because that just showed that you were done.
Look at you. You remember every detail.
Yeah, I remember that feeling. I remember being like, oh, we voted.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so it's an exciting feeling.
And that's what we can teach our kids. I know for me, I was in government class and they're like, if you don't vote, you lose your chance to have an opinion. And I was like, whoa, I need to have an opinion. So
you're like, based on that fact alone, I'm going to go.
It was based on my ego. Then I learned.
That's cute.
And I'm going to go ahead and say this because everyone loves Colin Kaepernick. And I'm not saying, and I like him for everything that he has done. It doesn't dismiss that. Okay? Right? Mm-hmm. But here is the disconnect. He goes, kneels down, all that. Okay. But he didn't vote. In the end, that guy did not vote. And
oh, how do you know that?
Oh, people talk about it all the time. I mean, I've Googled it a bazillion times, so I know for a fact, but also people talk about it. Like Bill Maher will talk.
Does he not register to vote?
He didn't vote. He said he didn't like either candidate. You can look this up. So, and here's my thing. You're fighting at a level about police brutality. And obviously for every presidential election, there are also local elections for that year. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You're talking about that and you're saying, I want to stop it. But if you don't vote, you're not understanding that you need to vote at a local level so you can help. Wherever your opinions are, like you can help. But your taxes go towards police. They go towards education, you know? So if you don't vote, what you're saying doesn't matter. And again, I separate that from the movement, okay?
Yeah.
So that's all.
Well, I think, I like recognizing that our right to protest is separate from our right to vote and they're not exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. But that is a little bit of a bummer because I thought he was very brave and very bold to do what he did.
Yes.
Especially because of all the scrutiny that he knew he was going to get and continued to get afterwards.
100% agree. Yeah.
And I cannot think of another action that has been so polarizing in like the workplace. Like, for example, at work, we had an NFL sponsorship and that conversation came up. Like, well, what about him kneeling and what are our, customers going to think?
And it's cost him his career. No one will take him. So I understand what he's paid for it. And also that action probably made a lot of other people go out and vote. So I understand all of that.
Right.
That's why I say I separate it.
But that is a bummer because at the end of the day, that is still your individual vote. And does he live in California? His vote actually counts in California too, because another purple state.
I don't know.
And then let's make it more personal. Let's talk about Alabama for a moment because Alabama, every person who voted for this very extreme and very conservative abortion ban was a white man. And so how did so many of them get elected? And then how come they didn't represent their constituents, or did they represent their constituents? I mean, it raises so many questions. I've never lived in Alabama.
I've been there once. One of my closest friends lives there.
Yeah, you have a friend that lives there, right? I have driven through Alabama, and to be quite honest with you, I felt very nervous being in
Yeah.
Alabama because it was so obvious that we were like a visual minority there.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I just was just like, I don't know. This is like, you know, you just feel
yeah.
uncomfortable.
I was in Huntsville, so I think that was a little bit like relatively a better place to be. So,
Yeah, that's probably like a bigger city, right?
yeah.
But it does like, I'm curious. Like, I don't know what the Alabama side of it is. Like, are they that conservative, or is it just like the people in power think that way? And I've been thinking about, so I've really been thinking about the ramifications of these very extreme abortion bans in places like Ohio, Georgia, and Alabama, to name a few. And Georgia is saying that they'll consider it a criminal act. So if you leave the state to have an abortion and then come back to the state, they will prosecute.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's frightening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's no exceptions for rape or for incest or for birth defects or medical issues.
That's the part that's just, I mean, all of it, but just rape.
Putting our own like feelings aside, because, you know, I obviously am like very pro mom, pro baby, and
Yeah.
anyone who has dealt with any types of fertility issues probably has very strong views on how you can evaluate like if it's the right scenario to have an abortion, which really is none of our business.
But that's the whole thing, right? It's their choice. It's like you may have,
Yeah.
you may make whatever choice, but it's their choice. That's it. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. Even though I actually saw on the news that Supreme Court is going to try not to take the case, and there are some federal judges blocking the ban.
Oh, is that true?
Oh, yeah. I saw that on the Today Show. They had some legal analysis on there talking about how it won't start for 6 months and that there's just going to be so much opposition. It was just an analysis.
Well, so sometimes I don't like things like that because that's like what the pollsters do. You know, they're like, oh no, like such and such hasn't reported yet. It's going to pull ahead, or the pollsters are saying this is going to happen. I feel like sometimes you hear these things like, oh, enough people are going to protest and petition the law, or petition the state, it's not going to happen. And then that makes it easy to just be like, okay, we don't need to do anything.
Right.
It's fine.
Hey, and that goes into a whole other thing, media responsibility. You know, media is telling me this as I'm watching it. What is their responsibility as far as how to tell the story?
Yeah. And how to cover it.
Yeah, and how people process that information and form opinions.
Yeah. What's your views? Because you're so close to like news production and media production.
My view is that the media needs to stop giving opinions. I mean, it just needs to be objective, straight up, and not editorialized. So I'm pretty good at catching when something's editorial. I think most people are, unless you're a moron. You know when you see an opinion.
Okay. I don't think it's that obvious sometimes. Like,
Well, I mean,
that was like escalated very quickly, Lisa. Like Game of Thrones has got you all hyped up.
well, see, you're jealous now because I still have 4 more seasons. You're done.
Yeah.
You're going through Game
I
of
am.
Thrones envy. You're going through post Game of Thrones
Withdrawal.
depression. I know this.
Yes, you do. No, I think you're right. I think sometimes it's obvious to know what's editorialized, but I think there's like a manipulation of the facts is very common, and it's not easy to get access to data. I think if two things, if we had access to more data and it was readily available, and two, we were taught in school and in like, you know, if we were taught in school to how to manipulate and analyze that data,
Right.
we would all be able to make different decisions.
Yeah, that's true.
The thing that really upsets me about Alabama, like I know it sounds like I'm harping on this Alabama thing, but it really represents like, it's like that Handmaid's Tale, like worst case scenario.
Right.
And the thing that upsets me, and I was talking to Buttum about this, is like Alabama has the least amount of paid leave for its women. It has the least amount of government or state level support for single women or for women that are below the poverty line. It has the least amount of food support, like in terms of food stamps being given to young people that need it, children under the age of 18. So it's like you're not going to let anyone have an abortion, even in cases of rape and incest, and then you have no programs in place to take care of the children. So what's going to happen to them? It's like you want to like have these babies born and you're not going to take care of them.
Right.
And one of the things that like really bothers me is that the ultra religious right is not pro-life. They're pro-Christian life. Because when there's bombings in Syria or there are immigrants at the border or refugees at the border who are being separated from their children or babies being separated from parents, then they're not pro-life. And by the way, those babies have heartbeats.
Yeah, exactly. The hypocrisy. We care about you until you're born.
It's like super upsetting to kind of think about.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how this story, what happens next, you know? So, but
Yeah,
either way, we have to be
exactly.
active and proactive citizens for our own
Right, that's
states,
right.
our own districts. So,
Yeah.
you know, I just realized I fell victim to that. You know, I'm sitting here in this podcast talking about that news thing I saw and like as if it was news, but it was really just an analysis. So, yeah, so that wasn't very journalistic of me.
And maybe you should take back your moron comment.
Who'd I call a moron?
You're like, any moron would know that. Or anybody.
Oh, no.
unless you're a
That's
moron. Okay,
different.
never mind.
I'm talking about, I actually just did what I said is a problem. I literally just told you about an analysis on TV
Yeah.
about how in 6 months, you know, it won't start for 6 months. That part is a fact, but everything else is just like an interpretation. And I actually, in this podcast, said, made the interpretation like it was news. So my apologies.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, that's good. Okay.
I'm glad you pointed that out, and this is how you make me grow.
Aw. Well, we have to learn from each other. Yeah. Was me pointing that out like a Tyrion thing to do? I'm just curious.
You know, that would be Tyrion. If there was anyone in the room to point out how I sat here and complained about something after doing that something, it would be Tyrion.
It would be Tyrion, even if it's not to Tyrion's benefit. But you know, Tyrion never wins, so let's put that into perspective too.
What are you talking about? He never wins. Stop it. I'm about to watch.
No, I'm not giving anything away. I'm just saying, in general, his character, like he's always like he tries and it fails, and he tries. I mean, look at him.
No,
his dad doesn't love him.
His dad
I'm not telling
sucks.
you anything.
Okay, but him never winning, especially when I'm going to watch the fight episode tonight. Anyway, so
Okay, he doesn't even fight. I think you know that.
I know, but obviously, if his champion dies, then he dies. So
Oh, well, yeah, I didn't think about it that way.
yeah, but you already know what happened.
Yeah, I know exactly what happened. That episode was a really hard one for me to watch, by the way.
Oh God! All right, I'll text you tomorrow.
So one thing that I did do this last election cycle is I took Hudgun with me to vote. It's not as dramatic as it was when I was a kid with like the curtain and all that, but she saw me push all the buttons and then she helped me press at the very end. There's like a green vote button and she helped me do that. And so that was really cool. And she got a sticker that said future voter. She was really excited.
I love this.
And then when we walked out, yeah, that's really cute. And then when we walked out, she says to me like, Mama, not supposed to tell anyone who you voted for. And now I know. So it was pretty cute.
Aww.
Sometimes kids surprise us, you know, with their little like actions.
And she's so wise. She is, Arya. She really is.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, speaking of wise children, it reminds me of my child who isn't wise, but she had a wise moment.
Okay, let's not sell her short just yet.
No. Well, you can't have wisdom until you have some experience under your belt. This is a small thing. Like a few days ago, we took her little puppet, her favorite puppet, Peppers. We took him in the car because she wanted to take Peppers to school for nap time, right? So Samir put Peppers in the car. We got to school. I dropped her off. That was it. I go to pick her up, and she's like, you forgot Peppers. I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't you have Peppers? I'm like, wait, what? And I was like, wait, let's look for Peppers. We're looking. We can't find him. She's like, I think he's in the car. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, I never gave you Peppers. And then she's like, it's your fault, Mommy. Like, you should never, like, why did you leave Peppers in the car? Anyway, we get home. We're still talking. She brings it up again. It was your fault, Mommy. And then this is like, I'm thinking, you know what? I can teach her a little bit about like blaming because we are kind of a society where we are never wrong, right? That's like my biggest problem.
That's right. Yeah, it feels good to blame someone else.
Yeah, we are the one person that God has picked to always be right, you know? So,
Right.
So,
Oh, you too? That's what I thought.
so I was like, hey, kiddo, listen up. We were both responsible for Peppers. She goes, no, it was you. I was like, no, Alyssa. And I'm like, it was both of us because you knew Peppers was in the car, so you could have said something. I knew he was in the car too, and I could have brought him. So it was both of us. So let's just own it. Just own it, right? And she's like, whatever. It just kind of dissolved. Yeah, whatever. Right? We're done, right? 48 hours later, randomly, Mommy, you're right. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're right. It was also my fault. I should have told you about Peppers, and you also should have taken Peppers out. And I was like, what? She goes, it was both of us, and I'm sorry. And I was like, what? And I just like looked at her and I was like, where's my child?
Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah, I honestly had a moment. Like I looked in her eyes and she has these glimpses of like I can see it in her eyes. I've always said that I think she's a wise soul. She's way wiser than I am. Not that I'm like the bar of wisdom, but she's like an older soul and all that, right?
Right.
But I look in her eyes and I could see these layers of like maturity and wisdom. And then it goes right away. And then she reverts to a 4-year-old.
Yeah, then you found a lollipop stuck underneath the dining table.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's funny. So, how come Peppers didn't say anything? I'm a little disappointed in Peppers.
I should have, because he is a puppet and I do Peppers. And can I show you Peppers? Oh, Allie, Pepper's so happy to see you. Oh, Pepper want a hug, hug, hug. That's Peppers.
That's so cute. Is he part French?
And I don't know, but this is the accent. Jessie Massey, don't make fun of me. Jessie Massey, cray cray. Jessie Massey, cray cray.
That's so awesome. I'm not going to complain about being called Tyrion anymore because I'm going to now make your nickname Peppers.
When you come in a few weeks, I'll do the Pepper show.
Oh, that would be awesome. Can we bring our puppets also and then do a show with you guys?
Yes, that'll be awesome. We'll have a puppet show.
We have very strong puppet game. We have finger puppets and full-on puppets. And I tried to make like a puppet theater for my kids out of canvases, but it didn't work. But we still do really good puppet shows.
I was going to try to make a puppet theater out of boxes, but I'm not a DIY person.
Okay, I'll make one for you when we come.
Oh my God, that'd be awesome. All right.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Okay,
with that, everyone get out there, register to vote, find out about your local officials.
Vote, 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 vote.
So I saw this thing on Instagram and it really bothered me. I was really proud of Bhavneet for calling this out. She reposted it on her social media. And I was reading through it and I was like, what would she be thinking, as a young person, reading the quotes from some of these Republican representatives. One of them says, Clayton Williams, he's from Texas, by the way. Rape is kind of like the weather. If it's inevitable, relax and enjoy it. Todd Aiken, representative from Missouri. If it's legitimate rape, the female body has ways to shut the thing down. Rick Santorum, he's from Pennsylvania. Rape victims should make the best of a bad situation. Richard Mourdock, representative from Indiana. Even when life begins in that horrible situation of rape, that is something that God intended to happen. Are these the people that you want representing you? If not, get out there and vote.